Alright, so now that we have our animation, we have our images in 3D space, and we have our moving 3D camera, we need to export this from our After Effects. Now, there are two ways you can go about doing this. You can go File, Export, and Add to Render Queue. This will open up this little render queue here. You'll have your export bar here, and then you also have how you want it to export. Your render settings should be pretty standard. You want the best quality. You don't want draft or wireframe. For your output module, this is the more important one and what defines it from the other way that I'm going to show you. Currently, it's getting exported as a lossless AVI format. AVIs are absolutely massive video formats. I do not allow you guys to turn in AVIs in this class that I'm teaching. For those of you that are just watching this randomly, you do what you want. But AVI formats are massively large. They're really hard to send via email because they can be gigs big, even if your animation itself is small. So when you are exporting from here, if you must do a video format from After Effects, there is this QuickTime MOV file type. It's a lot smaller in file format. It's still not as good as H.264 or MP4 format, but QuickTime will still get the job done. That being said, if you're going to use this render queue setting, I highly recommend exporting as an image sequence like a JPEG, an OpenEXR, PNG, Target, or TIFF sequence. That way you can get all of your images as a batched render sequence. This is the same way that you would render out sequences from Maya, Cinema, Houdini, that sort of thing. So should you need to export from After Effects using this setting, I highly recommend doing it as those image sequences, which you would then take into Premiere. So I'm going to do PNG sequence. You would then take that PNG sequence into Premiere and export it as that H.264. You would also have to tell it where is it exporting to. Does it need to export all of your images into a subfolder? I recommend this. It makes it a lot easier for you. And then you would just make sure its name is correct. Now, when you do this and hit render right here, it will slowly render out each frame individually to that little folder that you made at that name, and then when it's done, you'll have to take it into Premiere and export it from there. Now, that's a lot of extra steps, and there's other ways that you can export that is a lot quicker and does about the same job. So I'm going to come up here and go File and Export, and I'm going to do this Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. It is its own standalone program. The longest part of the encoder queue is just waiting for it to start. It doesn't take near as long as some of the other Adobe products to start up, but sometimes it does take it a minute to import your actual After Effects file. So do be patient with that and trust that it will work. It is still about a little bit long, like adding to the render queue itself does take a bit of time. This loading process takes a bit of time, but you will be able to skip a step as you won't have to go all the way to Premiere to export your render sequence. This will take you directly to that MP4 format. So as you notice, it is taking a little bit of time to register my file over here in this queue section. That is perfectly fine. I'm going to give it a good 2-3 minutes and let it do its thing. If you are working on a Mac and it doesn't pop up, you might have to manually add your project. Just be sure to save anytime you are going to export from a Mac. For some reason, that's the main difference between the Mac version of After Effects and Encoder Queue as compared to the Windows version, where the Windows version will take the version, even regardless if you save, that you currently have as your file here, regardless of the save, it'll just pop it here. As you see, it just popped up here. Whereas if it's a Mac, you do need to save first. So as you can see, it does automatically pop it up with that H.264 MP4 format. This is the format that we're looking for. But we're going to click on these second words here, and these are going to take us to our actual settings for our export. So it's opening up this nice dynamic link, and it opens up these export sequence settings right here. So we have a preview of our video that you can definitely scrub along, and it will update. I highly recommend checking this just to make sure that you do have motion in here, that things are moving how they're supposed to. But we want to make sure this format here is H.264. It might also, if you've never opened this before, automatically set you to AVI. Remember, we do not want those. We want this H.264 because it is the MP4 format. A good way to remember it is it's the one with the Blu-ray, but not the Blu-ray. From here, we can change our output name. I'm going to change mine to Demo 1. This is where it's going to be going. I highly recommend changing this location to somewhere where you can find it, should it want to be putting somewhere really weird. For me, it's automatically putting in my temp folder because this is where I've placed my project. For you, it might be in your Documents Adobe folder under the number of the type of version that you have. So I'm going to hit Save. From here, you can change whether you want your video to be exported with audio, if you have effects, audio, if you need to put captions, if you need to change your basic settings. For you guys, this should be pretty standard, but one thing we do want to make sure we check is use max render quality, because why would we not want to render with the best settings? And I'm just going to hit OK. From here, you'll see we still have that H.264 format. We have our custom settings, and this is where it's going and what it is named, and it is ready to be exported. The really cool thing about the Media Encoder queue is that you can queue up as many projects as you want and export them all at the same time. So if you have your project here and you're like, I have 4 different ones that I really like, I don't know which one I want, but I'm going to do all of them, you can queue them all up and hit this little play button right here, and they will all render at the same time. So you don't have to be waiting for a render. You can just have your render queued up. So I'm going to hit play. From here, we do want to make sure that your exported video is giving you a preview. Currently, mine is thinking right now. And you just want to check this occasionally to make sure it is rendering properly. Because if it comes in and you have an extra like 5 minutes of black video at the end, you may or may not have to cancel your render and cut out that black video. But from here, it will give you all the information that you would need about your video. And then once that's done, your render is complete, and you now have your After Effects exported video file.